Okay, so picture this. You feel amazing. You can knock out a 10K, you eat pretty clean, you have zero, and I mean zero symptoms of anything being wrong. But what if I told you that right now a totally catastrophic blockage could be silently growing inside one of your arteries? It is a deeply unsettling paradox, isn't it? And we're about to dive into exactly how that's even possible.
Just let that sink in for a second. That is a genuinely chilling statistic. And you know what? It's not much better for women. For half the people who have heart disease, there are no warning signs. No chest pain, no getting winded walking up the stairs, nothing. The very first sign that something is terribly wrong is the last one they ever get.
So this is the big question, right? This is the central mystery that we are going to unravel. How on earth can your body be so good at hiding a fatal condition right up until the very final moment? It just seems impossible. But it all comes down to some really fascinating and, frankly, dangerous biology. To get to the bottom of this, we have to basically become crime scene investigators. We need to go deep inside the body, right to the source, the coronary arteries themselves.
I want you to think of your heart not just as a pump, but more like a giant, living tree. And its survival depends entirely on this complicated root system. These are the coronary arteries. They wrap all around it, delivering the oxygen-rich blood that it needs to beat second after second. Now, if one of those main roots gets blocked, the part of the heart muscle it's feeding can start to die almost instantly.
And inside this root system, there's one main trunk. It's called the left anterior descending artery, or the LAD for short. In the ER, they have a pretty grim nickname for it, the Widowmaker. And the reason is just simple geometry. This one artery feeds the heart's main pump. A blockage here isn't like losing a little branch. It's like the entire tree just got chopped down.
Okay, now here is the single biggest misunderstanding that gets so many people into trouble. We all think of a blockage like a clogged pipe in your kitchen sink, right? Plaque just slowly builds up on the inside, narrowing the pipe until the water barely trickles through. We assume we'd feel it getting worse, but the reality is so much sneakier. The artery wall is alive and it adapts. It actually stretches outward to make room for the growing plaque. This keeps the channel for blood flow wide open, so you feel nothing. It's a crazy process called positive remodeling.
So how does this hidden plaque even form in the first place? Well, it all starts with tiny, microscopic injuries on the inner lining of the artery. Things like high blood pressure can cause this. Your body, always trying to help, sends LDL cholesterol, the bad kind, to act like spackle and patch up the little tear. But then your immune system's cleanup crew shows up, and its inflammatory response turns that soft little patch into a hardened, unstable lump that we call plaque.
All right, so you've got this hidden plaque, you feel perfectly fine, your blood is flowing just great, the time bomb is set, but it hasn't gone off yet. So now we're going to look at what actually lights the fuse.
What is the one event that turns this silent, hidden problem into a full-blown life-or-death emergency? Well, it turns out there are two main ways this bomb can detonate.
The most common trigger by far is what's called a type 1 heart attack. And to get this, you need to imagine that hidden plaque isn't a hard little rock, but it's more like a soft, angry blister just beneath the surface, filled with inflammatory gunk. A sudden spike in blood pressure, or even just a moment of intense physical exertion, can cause that blister to pop.
And this is where a truly catastrophic chain reaction kicks off. When that plaque ruptures, the body panics. It thinks there's a huge wound inside your artery, and it sends in the cavalry, platelets, to form a massive blood clot. Now, this healing response is great when you cut your finger, but inside an artery, it's deadly. In just a few minutes, that clot can grow so big it completely seals off the artery, like a cork in a bottle. Blood flow just stops.
But that's not the only way. There's another kind of heart attack, one that's especially sneaky for people who are really fit, like endurance athletes. This is the type 2 heart attack. And it's not about a rupture. It's all about simple supply and demand.
Think about it like this. If you're just sitting on the couch, a 50% blockage might not be a big deal at all. Your heart is getting plenty of blood. But then you go run a race. Your heart's demand for oxygen-rich blood just skyrockets. All of a sudden, that 50% blockage means the supply just can't keep up with the demand. Your heart muscle starts to suffocate, not because of a sudden cork, but because it's literally being starved of oxygen under extreme stress.
Now this brings us to a really crucial, kind of mind-bending number, 70%. That's usually the point where you might start to feel something is wrong, like a tightness in your chest when you exert yourself. But, and this is the absolute key to the whole paradox, most of the catastrophic sudden heart attacks, the rupture kind, they happen in arteries that are less than 50% blocked. Why?
Because those smaller, softer plaques are the unstable blisters that are most likely to pop.
Okay, I know. This all sounds pretty terrifying. But your body has this incredible, secret weapon, a backup plan that it can spend decades building without you ever knowing it's there.
It's called collateral circulation. The best analogy is to think of your main arteries as major interstates. Now, if there's a really bad traffic jam on one of those interstates that just goes on for years, your body, in its amazing wisdom, starts paving tiny little side streets and back roads to get around the blockage. And guess what one of the best ways to encourage your body to build these natural bypasses is? Yep, regular exercise.
And this explains a really weird paradox. You might have a 70-year-old with a 90% blockage who actually survives a major heart attack. Why? Because they've had 30 or 40 years to build this incredible network of detours. Meanwhile, a super fit 40-year-old has a sudden rupture and a 40% plaque, but they have no side streets built yet. The main highway just slams shut and there's no way around.
So, the million-dollar question. If you can't feel it, and being fit isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card, how in the world do you find this invisible threat before it's too late? Really, the goal is to find the fire while it's still just a little smoke, not when the whole house is burning down.
This is where we hit the limits of our standard tests. That blood work you get every year, that only tells you if you have the ingredients for a fire, things like high cholesterol. It doesn't tell you if anything is actually burning. To see the plaque itself, you need specific scans. A CAC score is great. It looks for hardened, calcified plaque. But the real gold standard is a CT angiogram, because that's the only test that can see both the old, hard plaque and, most importantly, that dangerous, unstable, soft plaque. And a scan like this gives you a real tangible number you can work with. A coronary artery calcium score, or CAC score, of 0 is perfect. It's what you want. But a score over 400? Well, that's what doctors consider a ticking time bomb. It tells you there's a significant amount of plaque in there, and you are at very high risk. This is knowledge you can actually act on.
So, what do we do with all this information? It really comes down to this checklist. You've got to control your blood pressure to stop those little tears from happening in the first place. You need to manage your blood sugar to keep inflammation down. You have to keep moving to encourage your body to build those life-saving collateral vessels. But honestly, the most important one is the last one. Don't guess. Stop assuming that feeling good is the same as being healthy. And that's really the final thought I want to leave you with. Knowing your cholesterol numbers is like knowing there's a can of gasoline in your garage. That's useful information for sure, but it doesn't tell you if a match has already been lit. The only way to know if your house is already burning is to actually look inside.